Hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive into this conversation, the work you do around intimacy, safety, connection is really going to resonate with my audience here. Can you tell me a little bit about you, your background? What got you into this field?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm a sex and intimacy educator and coach, and I'm also a lawyer by training. I was a healthcare lawyer for a couple of years, but then I transitioned into running healthcare not for profit organizations. And I was also living in a sexless marriage for 26 years. And so that was really leaving that marriage when I turned 50 was really the catalyst for me to take a very hard look at what was actually going on in my own life that caused me to be in a sexless marriage for years, why I stayed there for 26 years, and how I could heal that part of me because obviously that well, I don't obviously, but I know that obviously that was a lot of my own stuff, my own trauma, my own wounding, my own shame, that really, my own disconnection from my body and my sexuality that really held me back. And so it was that choice when I left the marriage to really like look at myself and do a deep dive that brought me into this field that I've been within for the last 15 years.
Hear you say that, it sounds like you had an extremely self-reflecting approach. Some clients I work with, and even myself at certain times, it's quicker to blame the other
Mhm.
person for the issue instead of having the awareness and the agency to really shine the light on themselves and to question, what is my part in this?
Mm. Yeah, well, I hear that, and I really want to take credit for that the way you just said it, and I'm going to tell them. I do, really. But I'm going to be honest because that's my thing. I'm very authentic and vulnerable. So it was very clear that this was on my part, at least the sexual piece of it, because I'm the one who hated sex. I'm the one in which sex was painful for me. I'm the one who decided to stop having sex. Like this was very much on my part. My partner, my ex-husband at the time, was not a part of that piece of it. The
Mhm.
part around the how do I show up in a relationship and why did I allow this to happen? Frankly, that's been like a 15-year journey of really like, in some ways, it was easier for me to heal the sexual component. Easier, meaning it was more direct, right? There
Mhm.
was trauma. I had to deal with it. I had to learn how to get in my body. For all of those pieces that affected my physical and energetic world. But the relational piece, the
Mhm.
intimacy piece, took a really long time through lots of trial and error and different lovely people who came in my life who were part of that journey, in particular like men who I was dating or in relationship with, right? For me to really unpack that and get down to the like, oh, this is what's actually happening. This is this part of me that's scared to be vulnerable, that's scared to be authentic, that's scared to open up my heart because I've been hurt, that has to deal with all of the pain of childhood, all of that stuff. That was really tough, I would say. The credit, I wish I could take it.
Well, thank you for your candor because there are many reasons why people end up in a sexless marriage, I'm sure. There's a million different things. And this situation you're describing, where there's one person that really had a block or something going on, that I'm sure represents a lot of women who are in
Mhm.
the same boat where they've lost the desire, they never even had the desire to begin with. I'm sure there's a huge scale there. Can you explain how those two areas are related and how they connect?
I mean, they're so integrally related, and this is especially true for women, right? Because in order for us to be able to like be in a sexual relationship, like truly be in a sexual relationship where we can fully express ourselves without shame, self judgment, right? Like we have to feel incredibly emotionally safe with our
Mhm.
partner. That's an absolute requirement. And when you don't feel emotionally safe, your nervous system does this thing where it just shuts it down. It
Mm,
literally just like a protection from the nervous system. I don't feel safe. I'm going to shut this down. I'm not going to feel desire. I mean, there's other reasons why we don't feel desire as well, but really it's a nervous system response to not feeling emotionally safe or safe in your body, which,
mhm.
can also be as a result of trauma, any type of trauma. But they're so intricately related for us because when we can start to feel emotionally safe, and honestly, like a lot of people, a lot of women have never actually felt emotional safety. I would say that people in general have felt what it's like to be emotionally safe because we grew up with childhoods where we
Mhm.
couldn't be emotionally honest and vulnerable, and there wasn't safety to actually express our feelings or
Mm.
express our pain or express our anger or express our disappointment. And we bring that into our adult relationships as well.
Yes. That is really poignant for me to hear because with the through line with a lot of the women that I work with, that is something we actually do work on, not in this context about intimacy, the way we're going to talk about, but just overall safety, like you're describing. If that is not something that you experience as a child growing up, it's so hard to even recognize it and to accept it, even if it's standing in front of you. It's almost like crushing to think about how something that everyone I feel and wish in a perfect world had in their immediate life all the time, and how many women in particular just never experience.
Yeah. I mean, and that's true because that's the way we grew up. Some women have had emotional safety with one parent. Often
Uh-huh.
it depends who it is at some level, but generally speaking, it's a struggle. It's a struggle for men as well, by the way. I mean, most of you all are women, but I want to say this is not just like a female issue, right? Men also struggle with emotional safety. It just shows up for them in a different way. So for a lot of men, they feel emotionally safe after they've had sex.
It's
That's
after, yeah.
that actually creates the like, oh, now I feel like I can open up and be vulnerable and be authentic. And for women, it's the opposite. So that's part of the pain points a lot. When I work with couples, it's like, oh, wow, like I need sex to feel emotionally safe. I need emotionally safe to have sex. What do you do with that? And honestly, like what you do with it is like you create the emotional safety for both of them. Right? And they both get to feel what it's like to be emotionally safe without sex having to be the judge what we judge it against, right? And that
Mhm.
actually creates the conditions intimacy oftentimes to allow intimacy to begin to open up and flow again.
So the safety really has to come first. It
It
has to be
does.
okay. It has to be.
Because and the truth is, right? Because in most relationships, like women hold the power. We do around sex, right? Like we're either going to allow it to happen or not allow it to happen.
Yeah.
And I tell men that all the time. You know of this. We
Not
do.
only just as far as what's going to happen, but how far they're going to go within the context of what is happening.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So in that power dynamic, we have a little bit of an advantage in that way. Not that I ever want people to use sex to manipulate, which they do all the time.
Right.
That's one of the things I hear a lot from men, like, oh, sex becomes something she dangles in front of me. And that's
Yeah.
a very, very hurtful and challenging and not safe for anybody experience. And I'm sure we all have our reasons for it. But we definitely want to create that emotional connection, that emotional safety, that emotional intimacy first. And that really is the focus of my work right now with couples,
Yeah.
helping them learn how to create that.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit more about what safety feels like in the body for women?
Yeah, well, everybody has their own experience around what safety feels like, but what that feels like on the outside in relation is I can tell my partner how I'm actually feeling without the fear that I'm going to be judged, that my feelings are going to be invalidated, that they're going to try to fix me or fix it, which is also invalidating my feelings. Into a space where you're like, yeah, I know I can tell you something about my feelings. Maybe it's something that's going to hurt you because we do hurt each other in relationships, but I know it's going to be okay. Like, I know that you're going to be able to hear that, and we're going to have a way, a process, and tools to be able to create more connection when that experience happens, rather than being either avoiding the conflict, because avoiding it altogether because I'm afraid it's going to move into conflict, and then we're going to get into a fight and we're going to feel even more disconnected.
Mm.
And that a lot of people do, and then resentment builds up, and then you're in this like rat race to see who can hurt each other more or who can avoid conflict more, and it just creates more and more distance, which doesn't feel safe.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you
Right.
correctly, it sounds like, again, this emotional container of safety is just underlying all of this, because being able to be in that space and feeling safe enough to be honest,
Hmm.
feeling that safe around anyone is really rare. A gift to actually be able to be that honest without fear that it's not safe and it's not going to go well. It's
But here's the truth, right? So, like my new book, The Sex and Intimacy Repair Kit, which just came out, it's like three-quarters of the book, two-thirds of the book is focused on the tools that you need, that you can learn. Because here's the thing that people don't understand, right? They think that this is like an innate thing. Like, I
Mm,
either can do it or I can't do it. And the truth is that both intimacy skills and sex skills are skills, and they can be learned. It's not like anybody, I don't even like to use this word, but it's not like anybody is so foregone that they cannot learn how to be vulnerable, how to be authentic. Just even small little experiences create that connection.
this is really wonderful content. I am so grateful that you have this book, because that is still, I think, relatively new to me, to people, that it isn't just something you're born with. Like, the perception is sometimes some people are just really good at relationships. Some people are really good at marriage. They were just married for 50 years and they have a wonderful marriage, and there's never a deep dive into why is that marriage working? Why
Hmm.
is that couple passionate after all these years?
Hmm.
And it's really refreshing to be able to look inside and see there are ways that all of us can improve our relationships.
Absolutely, 100%. And I really am glad you got that. And I really want all of your listeners to hear that too, because, and I don't know. I don't think that in like therapy, and I have tons of couples who come to me who have been to therapists, been to therapy for 10 years, 15 years, who knows, that comes across, right? There's often like this unpacking of, I'm not saying unpacking childhood wounds is important, critically important. You got to know your stuff. You've got to know
Mhm.
where your triggers come from, and you've got to be able to, like, be able to soothe yourself, and be able to tell your partner, oh, shoot, I can tell this is one of my triggers coming up. Ouch, that hurts, kind of thing. But like, these are actually skills that people can learn. It doesn't take some sort of special intuitive ability. Yeah, there's some people that are more emotionally aware, emotionally intelligent, often women, but not all women. And I've met a lot of men who are a lot more emotionally intelligent than some of their partners, right?
Yes.
Who we choose to be with. But there are skills
Mhm.
and easy steps that you can start to take to start to feel that connection with each other. And I know, because I do it all the time in my retreats. I take couples that are on the verge of separation, and I get them after 4 or 5 days working with me individually to be like, we're a couple again. We feel connected again. We're having sex again, or some level of physical intimacy that we haven't had in 10 years. I know it's possible. And
Yeah, that's got to be very rewarding work you're doing.
it is. It really
I can
is.
imagine. Now that we're on this topic, and I want to talk about desire, and just learning women are going to lose all desire when they go
Mm.
through menopause and it's
Hmm.
over. But
Hmm.
then I have other people in my life who are well into their 70s that are having phenomenal sex life. So,
Mhm.
where do you think this belief is coming from? Does this have to do with emotional intimacy? What do you think this is about?
I think it's a combination. So I think that one part of it is, and my views have changed on this a little bit the more I've worked with couples, but I think one part of it is, and I still believe this, I know this to be true, that a lot of women are just having really bad sex. They're not getting what they want. They're not being touched the way they want. It's very performative. They're feeling a lot of pressure, right? They've either never had a great sexual experience or they're not getting what they want and they don't know how to express it. Or if they try to tell their partner, then their partner starts feeling shame and they don't want to go there. And then they're feeling disconnected. And so they end up just like putting up with obligation sex because they don't want to upset the apple cart. And then when perimenopause comes along and menopause comes along, they have a
Mhm.
really good excuse
Okay.
not have any more desire. It becomes like the end point in the relationship. But what you'll notice is if that relationship ends for some reason and all of a sudden they're back out in the dating world, their desire goes straight up again. And part of that is new relationship energy. Of like new relationship energy is very hormone driven, and that doesn't stop as we age. People are like, "There's no new relationship energy after menopause." Bullshit. Totally. Right? I've seen it with 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds in new relationship. That is a hormone dopamine driven
Yes.
biological response, right? Of what your estrogen level is. It's still there. And ladies, it's dopamine, very different
Yes,
chemical. It's
hormone.
exciting. It's like crack cocaine. That's what it is. So that's one aspect of it, right? So I think that is definitely one of the parts of it. But the more I do this work and I see it in long term relationships, like couples that have been together for 25 years. I mean, I just ran an international retreat with a wonderful group of couples. I think the average couple had been married 25 or 27 years, right? So these are people in very long term relationships who love each other and come in to this retreat, but they're still feeling disconnected and their sex life isn't great. And yes, we teach a lot of skills, but also we really focus on the emotional connection. And again, without that emotional connection, feeling distant, feeling some distance with your partner, feeling, that you're not feeling like they desire you or they're not feeling desired, whatever. All of that shows through in the emotional intimacy. It's a basic,
Mhm.
you cannot hide it. And one thing I tell women all the time is like, if you're feeling emotionally disconnected from your partner, I 100% guarantee you that they're feeling it as well. It is
Okay.
ever one sided. They may not be able to express it. I might have to be able to push them a little bit on it, but we're human being. We're two human beings. We're two nervous systems
Mhm.
trying to find each other that are trying to attune. And you asked me
Mhm.
that. I think that may be a way to describe what is emotional safety feels like. It feels like attunement, right?
Okay.
Like when you feel gotten, like you're on the same wavelength, when you're tuning forks that are resonating at the same note, at the same vibration, that's safety. When there's dissonance in those tuning forks, that's not emotional safety. And that's what it feels like.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful visual. The sense of
Mm-hmm.
attunement
Mm-hmm.
is safety. It reminds me, there's a woman doing work right now with children, Dr. Becky, but she talks about that, like with even in the same
Yeah.
respect with a parent child attunement. Are you
Huge.
attuned to your child? That's the same idea of safety. So your child, if they're acting out, if they're having a tantrum, you can attune to them and there's a resonance.
And that creates secure attachment, right?
Mm.
And all of these misconnections and distance are usually attachment wounds that have never really been worked through or healed or repaired or understood. You were misattuned as a child.
Yeah, and it's unfamiliar, it's new territory to be
Right.
attached and attuned with someone. It's learning a brand new language. It's a whole new thing, sounds
Right.
like.
Yes, totally.
I have a question about women who are single. So, women that have found themselves single, maybe not by choice. They're
Hmm.
divorced, their husband left, and some that are single by choice. It's both. But I wonder if you have any thoughts for them on how to even mentally, emotionally begin to prepare for a new relationship that you really want, that you don't have yet. But what can you do to to bring the part of yourself into this relationship that has the highest chance of succeeding?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing I would say, having been there, is even in a relationship where your husband left you, short of that being a really abusive relationship, which it could have been, emotionally abusive, really taking a hard look at like, why did that happen? How did I contribute to it? Like, how did I contribute to it? How did my wound show up? How did I show up in that relationship? Like, really doing some of your own work, looking inside of yourself and having some real self awareness of your own patterns. Because if you don't start looking at that and understanding it, 100% chance it will be repeated in the next relationship. And
Yeah.
that's what I see a lot, right? We have some sort of pattern that probably we learned in early childhood. And because we don't really understand it, we don't have the self awareness, which obviously you do with the women that you coach, right? Are going to go into that next relationship with another great person who seems like a great person at the beginning. And that is going to come up, and you're going to start repeating that pattern again. It might be slightly different,
Hmm.
but it's going to happen. And so I would say the first thing is like really take a hard look at how you showed up and what work you need to do to look at yourself in of how to go into the next relationship. And that's hard, right? Because especially when you're coming out of a divorce, it feels really good to be in victim mode, especially
Yeah.
if your partner left you. But I guarantee you that you played, yeah, and I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just, no, because I did it myself. I knew, like, I started doing that work and I'm like, oh my God, how did he even stay with me as long as he did? The way I treated him, the way I emasculated him, like all of these things that I did in the power dynamics in our relationship. And
Hmm.
how do I like try not to repeat that in the next relationship that I go into? And it's been a little bit of a journey, like I said, like been through a bunch of relationships, and each time it got better because I became more aware and I started. And the other thing is like to start picking better people,
Yeah.
right? Like to also know, like be very aware of what your red flags are as well.
Because you might find yourself continually attracted to the same red flag.
And again, right? Here's the pattern. My mother was a narcissist, right? My ex husband, very narcissistic and emotionally narcissistic, right? It took a bunch. I kept on being attracted to, and I still have a partner I adore. There's a little bit of narcissism, and that's not a bad thing. I think there's something about like narcissism gets this negative word. We all should be a little bit narcissistic,
Yeah.
but just being really aware of, yeah, oh, here it is. I'm an empath trying to do a narcissist. How do I manage that inside of myself? And how do I start to identify when the red flags are showing up in the relationship, right? And I think a lot of women going through divorce also, for me, honestly, this was a huge growth opportunity. I was excited. I was scared, petrified, frankly, but for no real good reason, just because like emotionally it felt really scary. But it was a growth opportunity for me to say, like, who am I now? I've been a wife, I've been a
Mhm.
business owner, yada, yada. Like, but who am I? What do I really want in my life? Who do I want in my life?
Okay, so it's really getting clear about the past and then also right now, the present, and thinking also about what you want in the future, like starting to move in a new direction. Like you said,
Mhm.
not repeating the whole thing again and again. And I feel like that's part of the human condition. Like, unless we do the changing, we're just going to keep repeating it over and over
Percent.
and over again.
Yeah.
We
I
can't
mean,
even visualize how unbelievably magnetic that issue is. It's truly, I have in my mind, I picture that magnet just drawing in those red flags. Could be anywhere, airports, it could be anywhere.
they're all over and you are magnetized to it, right? It's really like being super aware. After my divorce, I got in a relationship which was the most emotionally abusive relationship I've ever been in my life, right? And I was playing out a childhood wound that I never was able to really play out in my marriage. But I learned a lot from that. It was most painful, but I learned so much about myself and I worked out some of my stuff in the context of that relationship. And that's what relationships are there for, right? Like, I think like people who think that relationships are easy. I mean, yes, there's not supposed to be a ton of drama, right?
Right.
But relationships are really there to help us heal our childhood wounds. Really are. The best ones do that. It takes
Hmm.
work. It doesn't magically. And sometimes it's very painful and it's not necessarily going to last. It's not the right relationship, but it really does bring up a lot of your stuff and it's an opportunity to heal it.
I like the way you're saying that because I feel like sometimes it's easy to judge ourselves for choosing another wrong person who's not the person. But I like the way you're framing that because it's not for nothing. It is an opportunity, and there's a reason for that relationship to grow,
100%.
work through whatever that issue that is inside of you that needs to be healed. And I feel like there's a little bit of judgment. This is my perspective, just in general, when women, I mean, I was single for 14 years and I was dating, and it was a lot of drama issues. And sometimes I felt like, why can't I just get it together? Why can't I just pick the right person? And I look back now and I'm able to relate to what you're saying because I'm able to see myself with more, truly more compassion, but also proud of myself that I worked it out, that I didn't just crawl into the hole, give up. Although it was hard and I had a lot of lessons to learn, and I still do, I really am glad that those experiences happened, or I wouldn't have learned those lessons. Like, there's just a lot of pressure to like pick the right person right away. And I think I don't know why that's there, but that's just something I sense.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think there's a lot of pressure to get into like the better relation, the perfect relationship, right? And I mean, I used to work with a lot of single women when I first started practicing 15 years ago. And a lot of divorced women, and I always tell them, like, I'll tell divorced men this as well, like, I don't think this is going to be the next one. Like, I think there's a healing process that needs to happen after you've been in a long term, really long term relationship. You need some time and energy to heal. And you need to have some new experiences before. I'm not saying that doesn't ever happen. I have seen it happen, and you probably have as well. In large, like, there's a couple of years that generally people need trauma and to do your own work before you're really ready to drop into, like, quote, the final relationship. I mean, I've been single for 15 years and I said I've been through a lot of relationships, but I still was single and all of that until I finally found like the right partner, which took me almost 12 years to get there. And even
Hmm.
in that relationship, trust me, we do work all the time, right? Our things, and we do work, and we're both working ourselves and seeing therapists, and like it's a process, right? You want
Yeah.
to grow, you want to expand, you want to, as great as a relationship is, you want to make it better, you want to make it juicier, you want to make it more vulnerable, you want to make it more intimate.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk about your book now for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I know that your book is out and it sounds like it's got a combination of your work is helping, and also there's a personal thread in it. Do you share your personal story
I
through the book?
do. Yeah,
Okay,
I
great.
do.
Is
I
there
do.
any kind of teaser you could give us so that we have an idea of what we will discover in this book?
Well, you're going to discover a lot about emotional intimacy and what emotional intimacy looks like and what it doesn't look like and how to get there. Right? And if you're a single woman, these exercises and practices that you can do on your own as well. A lot of the work around understanding your own wounds and
Mhm.
understanding, practicing empathetic listening, right? Like a lot of these skills, learning how to repair conflict, right?
Mm.
That's huge. That's one of my biggest takeaways. And I always tell my couples this, like the difference between a couple who is going to be able to sustain and grow a long term relationship versus a couple that's going to stall, because a lot of couples stall. I was stalled for 26 years. Trust me, I know what stalling feels like. Or the relationship is going to end, is the difference between being able to learn how to repair conflict versus sweeping it under the rug. So you're definitely going to learn a lot about that. And
Okay.
then I think what you're going to enjoy, at least as what people have told me so far, I have some people who have read it, the early version of it, is that you're going to be dropped in to a coaching session. You're going to like have a bird's eye view of what actually happens when couples come into a coaching session with me and what that process looks like, because a lot of the learning happens in the book. The learning points are in the coaching session as well, which is a little different than just giving people like case studies to work with.
Yeah. Because you feel like you're on the inside. You feel like
You're
you're
on the
really,
inside. And
yeah.
it becomes very relatable. Oh, I could see that happening. I remember having that conversation with my partner and yeah. So yeah.
That's fabulous. I think that's going to be very helpful. So, one thing I always close my podcast with is a question. Her new lens is a chance for us to see and perceive the world, ourselves, our relationships through a different lens.
Mm.
And it's trying different perspectives. And it's really interesting to see how everyone has different lenses they recommend or use often. I wonder if there's one that just comes to mind for you that you could offer to listeners to try, like a lens to see their relationship through or themselves, or does anything come to you? Any thoughts on that?
Okay. I have two. So one relates to my first book, which is Living an Orgasmic Life. And that's actually my own journey and those of my clients around sexual awakening and healing. And that lens would be look at your life through the lens of pleasure. Sure, like I say, that pleasure is our birthright,
Mm,
right? So
mhm.
really making sure that your life is giving you a lot of pleasure. I'm not just talking about sexual pleasure, but I'm talking about in all aspects of our life,
Yep.
right? Pleasure is very important. The second lens that I suggest that people look at is through the lens of vulnerability. So when we think about intimacy, I like to break it down phonetically, and that's right.
Mhm.
Intimacy. Am I allowing you to see into me, and are you allowing me to see into you? Because that's what intimacy really means, right? Like
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
you see all of my stuff, my pain, all of my hurt, all of my shame, all of that. And I like to think about relationships through that lens of
Mm.
vulnerability.
Great. Well, those are two lenses that I think are going to make a huge difference to our listeners. And I'm going to be including all of the links for you, for Janae, at the end of the show, and a link to her new book and her old book. And I just want to thank you so much for being here today, Janae. It's been a super enlightening and fascinating conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delightful conversation for me as well.
Awesome. Thanks. Perfect.